Illusion. A warlock with a ring of invisibility walks through a fortress gate. A rogue wearing disguised self walks past a guard as the captain. Both are masterful infiltration tools. But a caster who drops a minor illusion outside the same gate will have that illusion shattered the moment a curious guard reaches out to touch it. That is the contradiction at the heart of illusion in 5th edition. It is the school of deception, yet its own rules make it the easiest school to expose. The illusion school includes spells that deceive the senses or minds of others, causing people to see things that are not there, not see things that are there, hear phantom noises, or remember things that never happened. Invisibility and disguised self sit right there in the roster alongside the far more fragile minor illusion. A creature can use its action to examine a minor illusion, moving within 5 feet of it and interacting with it to see if it's real. Physical interaction with an illusion reveals it to be an illusion because things can pass through it. Once a creature discerns an illusion, the illusion becomes faint to that creature. When casting minor illusion, a caster can create both a sound and an image with a single casting, and the spell lasts for a full minute. But that minute dissolves the instant someone decides to look closely. A second-level illusion wizard gains Illusion Savant, which halves the gold and time required to copy illusion spells into their spellbook. At 6th level, Malleable Illusions lets them use their action to change the nature of an illusion with a duration of 1 minute or longer, provided that they can see the illusion. At 10th level, Illusory Self allows a wizard to create an illusory duplicate that causes an attack roll against them to automatically miss, after which the illusion dissipates. The wizard must then finish a short or long rest before using it again. Nobody investigated. Physical interaction revealed it. Character motivation didn't matter. The rules simply don't allow a guard to be fooled by a static image on the floor unless the caster rolled well enough to outpace their passive investigation. In AD&D, illusion had 2 primary forms: illusions that simulate reality but cannot cause harm, and phantasms that prey upon the target's senses, often evoking fear. 5th edition carries that lineage forward with both harmless illusions and phantasms that prey upon the senses, including some that can directly harm a target. That distinction is doing more work than it seems. Illusion's fundamental limitation is not a bug, it's the entire design philosophy made visible. This is a school whose power lives in the gap between what is there and what the observer believes is there, and the rules make sure that gap stays gaping. Enchantment. Illusion touches one creature's senses at a time. Enchantment reaches into the mind and reshapes behavior itself. And unlike the school of deception, nothing here needs to be believed to work. The school of enchantment is designed to manipulate the mental state of the target, similar to hypnotism, and the spell list reads like a catalog of willpower violations. Charm Person is the signature first-level spell, making a humanoid view you as a friendly acquaintance. Hold Person is a second-level spell that paralyzes a humanoid target who can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns to end the effect on a success. Mass Suggestion is a 6th-level spell with a 24-hour duration that lets you plant a course of action in the minds of up to 12 creatures simultaneously, each of them walking willingly toward whatever outcome you described. At 9th level, Power Word Kill ends a creature instantly if it falls below 100 hit points. No roll required, no save offered. The word is spoken and the creature drops. Feeble Mind is an 8th-level spell that can reduce a creature's intelligence and charisma, leaving it unable to cast spells, understand language, or communicate. Every single one of those effects works by inserting a new instruction directly into another creature's decision-making process, and every spellcasting class has access to at least some of them. Bard, Cleric, Druid, Paladin, Ranger, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard all have enchantment spells on their lists. Affected creatures may act completely differently than normal, influenced by the enchantment to act in ways they otherwise would not. Spell schools help describe spells but have no rules of their own, though some other rules refer to them. Enchantment is a school whose entire identity is about affecting the minds of others, influencing or controlling their behavior. Subscribe and tell us in the comments which schools of magic you think fits the concept of magic best. Let's get back into it. Divination. Before you object that enchantment at least requires a functioning mind to manipulate, consider the loophole that saves it from being the most invasive school in the book. It needs something in there to work on. Divination doesn't. Want to find a trap that hasn't been built yet, locate a person you've never met, or ask a deity a question about events 7 days from now? The school handles all of it without requiring the target's cooperation, consent, or even existence at the time of casting. At least when you charm a goblin, you're working with a creature that had some kind of volition to override. Divination bypasses the mind entirely and reads the information layer of the universe directly. That's the escalation, and it changes what magic means in this system. The school's coverage runs the full cantrip through 9th level span. Guidance and True Strike sit at the bottom, cantrips that nudge a single roll or grant advantage silently and invisibly. Detect Magic holds down the 1st level tier, and its classification here isn't trivia. It determines what a DM describes when players sweep an area for magical auras, which means the school assignment feeds directly into how the game world gets narrated. The real power concentrates at the top. The spell, actually called Divination, is a 4th level ritual available to clerics and wizards, cast with verbal, somatic, and material components, specifically incense and a sacrificial offering worth at least 25 gold pieces, which the spell consumes in the casting. You ask a deity or the deity's servants one question about a specific goal, event, or activity set to occur within 7 days, and the DM provides a truthful reply. The catch is mechanical and cumulative. Cast the Divination spell 2 or more times before finishing a long rest, and each casting after the first carries a stacking 25% chance of producing a random reading instead of the answer you asked for. The school that delivers perfect foresight punishes you for using it too often, with the failure rate compounding every single time you push for more information in a single day. The name comes from the old real-world practice of reading signs, watching for omens, examining animal entrails, interpreting patterns in smoke or stars, methods that existed across every culture with a recorded spiritual tradition. That historical breadth maps onto the school's mechanical range, which is partly why it kept causing classification headaches. D&D 2nd edition solved the problem by splitting divination into 2 separate schools, Lesser Divination and Greater Divination, treating Detect Magic and Ask a God About Next Tuesday as categorically different enough to deserve their own labels. 5th edition collapsed them back into one school, though the spell list still carries that internal distinction. In the current 2024 Player's Handbook, spell schools matter primarily for wizard subclasses, since most of them anchor to specific schools of magic, which means Divination is a school where information breaks the game's own internal logic, and the designers responded not by nerfing it, but by taxing it. The 25% stacking misfire on the Divination spell isn't a balance afterthought, it's the system acknowledging that perfect information has no safe dosage. Divination reveals what the 5e design philosophy actually thinks about omniscience. It's not a power to hand out freely, it's a risk to be managed. Transmutation. Where Enchantment whispered and negotiated with minds, Transmutation grabs reality and remakes it without asking anyone's permission. This school bypasses negotiation, persuasion, and consent entirely, turning enemies into newts, bolstering allies with impossible strength, walking on vertical surfaces, or stopping time altogether. The name wasn't always Transmutation. Earlier editions called this school Alteration, a word that carried a specific meaning about modifying something that already existed, before the designers rebranded it using terminology borrowed from alchemical and philosophical traditions where base metals become gold through transformative processes. The renaming signals the ambition shift, because a transmutation wizard doesn't describe themselves as casting spells on targets. They describe their craft as modifying energy and matter itself, treating the world as mutable clay on a forge, and themselves as the smith. That framing isn't flavor text. It's the school's actual mechanical identity, and it produces the most sprawling spell list in the entire game. The breadth is intentional and structurally supported. At 2nd level, the Transmutation Savant feature halves the gold and time required to copy transmutation spells into a spellbook, making the school's reach cheap to expand. Minor Alchemy, also at 2nd level, lets transmuters temporarily alter non-magical objects made of wood, stone, iron, copper, or silver into different materials, up to 1 cubic foot per 10 minutes of work, the change lasting 1 hour or until concentration breaks. The 6th level Transmuter's Stone requires 8 hours of construction and then offers a menu of options: dark vision to 60 feet, a 10-foot speed increase, proficiency in Constitution saving throws, or resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. And the spell list itself reads like a catalog of things the rules normally forbid: polymorph, flesh to stone, prestidigitation, feather fall, blink, time stop, reverse gravity, spider climb. These aren't adjacent mechanics sharing a vague theme. They're fundamentally different interventions in physical reality that somehow all belong to one school, which is exactly the problem. And that is the small version of it. The The Transmuter's Stone is a 6th level feature. Polymorph is a 4th level spell. The full Transmutation roster covers utility, combat, exploration, and raw reality warping with equal comfort, spanning effects so varied that no single mechanical definition unites them. You can't describe Transmutation by what it does to the game, because it does nearly everything that touches the physical world, which means it does nearly everything. When a school's only coherent definition is spells that affect matter or energy in ways the other schools didn't claim, you haven't described a school, you've described a landfill for spells that wouldn't fit anywhere else. This is the one sentence worth repeating. Transmutation isn't a coherent category of magic with a central identity. It's the residual category, everything that changes the physical world and couldn't argue convincingly for membership in any other school. Conjuration. Transmutation twisted the shape of reality, but Conjuration doesn't just reshape, it plucks existence out of thin air and drops it wherever its wizard points. And if you thought turning someone into a frog was alarming, Conjuration raises the stakes by letting a conjurer materialize an army, teleport halfway across the continent, or make a missing tower appear out of literal nowhere. This school is defined by pure intrusion, transporting creatures and objects across distances with magic alone, ignoring any sense that boundaries should exist. Conjuration wizards, called conjurers, learn spells that cause objects and creatures to appear, summoning allies to fight, and even teleportation magic for crossing vast geographic or planar divides. The chaos is deliberate. In earlier editions of D&D, it was called Conjuration/Summoning, and had a notorious reputation for summoning devils and demons, but in 5th edition, it's more surgical. The school of Conjuration is precisely about making things appear or vanish, never just tweaking what's already there. Every conjurer gets a distinct set of abilities beginning at 2nd level. Conjuration Savant halves the gold and time needed to copy a conjuration spell into a wizard's spellbook, shorthand for the obsessive focus conjurers have for their discipline, rewarding those who commit. Then comes Minor Conjuration. At will, a conjurer can summon any inanimate, non-magical object they've seen, as long as it's under 3 feet on a side and weighs less than 10 pounds. A summoned object glows dimly out to 5 feet and disappears after 1 hour, when you use this feature again, or if it takes or deals any damage. You could pull a key, a book, or a coin from thin air, nothing priceless or magical, but sometimes a candle is all you need to tip the odds. And then the strangeness intensifies. At 6th level, Benign Transposition lets a conjurer instantly teleport up to 30 feet as an action, or swap places with a willing small or medium creature. Once per long rest, or refreshed, by casting a 1st level or higher conjuration spell. This can mean trading a wizard's position with an ally on the verge of death, or teleporting behind enemy lines. At 10th level, Focused Conjuration locks the wizard's focus so tightly that taking damage can't break concentration on a conjuration spell. Where every other school's spell can be undone by a stray arrow, conjuration spells keep running, no matter how chaotic the battlefield becomes. Then, at 14th level, Durable Summons shoves conjured creatures even further into the lead. Any creature summoned or created by a conjuration spell gains 30 temporary hit points, enough to turn the tide of a fight that should have already been lost. No other school gets to stack temporary hit points like this. It's a wall of summoned bodies, both literal and strategic. Now, some skeptics will call it cheating. That's just magic for lazy strategists. You're getting creatures and objects for free without earning them. Except the game cuts right through. You can't summon anything magical, and only what you've seen, with real restrictions. The summoned object radiates dim light, vanishes if it's damaged, and you only get one at a time. Conjurers are banned from conjuring up infinite treasures or magical tools. There are limits carved out of the illusion that anything is possible. So when a conjurer creates, they're choosing the precise moment and item, not flinging unlimited power around. It's an image that sticks. A conjurer standing on a battlefield, summoning a shield or beast that didn't exist a second before, teleporting themselves or an ally to safety, banked by summoned creatures with borrowed lifespans, each one glowing against the chaos, ready to vanish when the spell breaks. Abjuration. While Conjuration threatens to unravel reality at a whim, Abjuration magic is close at hand, woven into the defenses you see every day. Wards shield the door, spells block the mind from intrusion, barriers keep the malice out. The school isn't defined by what it creates, but what it denies. Abjuration's power is preventive, spell after spell built around blocking, banishing, or reversing harm. Wizards trained in Abjuration, abjurers, are called whenever spirits must be cast out, locations protected from magical spying, or portals to other planes closed shut. At second level, Abjuration Savant halves the gold and time needed to add an abjuration spell to a spellbook. The theme is repetition, patience, and careful fortification over showy spectacle. The core tool, Arcane Ward, is conjured by casting any abjuration spell of first level or higher. The ward is a reservoir of hit points equal to twice your wizard level plus your intelligence modifier, absorbing damage instead of the wizard and lasting until a long rest. The ward becomes almost a second skin, layering protection between a wizard and the chaos just outside. As mastery increases, so do the defenses. At 6th level, Projected Ward lets an abjurer use their reaction to have their arcane ward absorb damage for a creature within 30 feet. At 10th level, Improved Abjuration adds your proficiency bonus to any ability checks made as part of casting spells like Counterspell and Dispel Magic. That means when another wizard tries to break through your defenses with a spell, you stand a much better chance of reversing it, outpacing their effort with fortified skill and experience. No other school offers this layer of insulation. At 14th level, Spell Resistance grants advantage on saving throws against spells and resistance to spell damage. The implications are undeniable. Abjurers don't just stand at the edges of disaster, they are the last clearance before catastrophe, the sentinels who keep the worst at bay, not with bravado, but with silence. The closer the threat, the stronger their resolve. And wherever abjuration magic is at work, disaster is held outside, at least for another day. Necromancy. These wizards don't simply study death, they manipulate the energy that animates all living things. Every spell they cast is built on a single mechanic. They sap the life force from creatures as their magic destroys the body, transforming that vital energy into magical power. That's not metaphor, that's the school's engine. The dead don't stay dead on a necromancer's watch. Not by accident, by design. The 2024 Player's Handbook keeps the 8-school structure identical to its 2014 predecessor, and necromancy holds its place as the school of endings, the one that doesn't prevent death but masters it. At second level, a necromancer gains Grim Harvest, which regains hit points equal to twice the spell's level, or 3 times its level if the spell belongs to the school of necromancy. A 3rd level spell that finishes a target off gives them 6 hit points back. A 9th level spell gives 18. A full adventuring day of carefully applied finishing power can sustain them through encounters that would flatten a less efficient caster. That's not flavor text, that's a mechanical feedback loop. Kill, gain, kill, gain. The 2024 Handbook frames this as a moral choice, not just a mechanical one. But the fact is, a 10th level necromancer walks through battlefields with the authority of an undertaker and a jailer rolled into one. At 14th level, Command Undead lets them seize control of any undead creature that fails its saving throw. No maximum challenge rating, just a contested wisdom check against whatever intellect the creature possesses. A lich isn't safe from a 14th level necromancer if the lich fails that roll. Now, defenders of the school point out that Command Undead requires concentration, which means a single hit breaks the control. And it's true, concentration is a real tax. But here's the counter. That limitation doesn't prevent the ability from working on the vast majority of undead encounters in published content. Most skeleton hordes, ghost variants, and mid-tier undead threats simply don't have the durability to survive long enough to break concentration through damage. The tax exists on paper. In practice, it barely matters. Grim Harvest has a ceiling, once per turn. The designers could have let it stack infinitely. They didn't. They gave it a rhythm that rewards careful spell selection over reckless casting. The 10th level ability makes the Necromancer a gatekeeper of souls. The 14th level ability makes them a field commander of the dead. The class is built around a feedback loop where death feeds magic and magic produces more death. Every feature on the list pushes the same direction. The school was built for a specific fantasy, power over the end of things, and the wizard who picks it is choosing to become the thing that stands on the other side of it. Evocation. An evoker is a wizard who studies the magical school of evocation, an adept in the art of arcane destruction. The school specializes in elemental damage types including fire, cold, acid, lightning, and thunder. The 2024 Handbook describes it as the best pick for wizards that want to lay enemies low with sheer, unstoppable damage. The symbol of evocation magic is a circle with 8 small lines radiating outward from it, like a child's drawing of the sun. It's one of the first symbols any student of magic learns, or becomes scholars of evocation. Evocation Savant at 2nd level halves the gold and time required to copy an evocation spell into the spellbook. That's a real resource savings that compounds across a full adventuring career and dozens of spell copies. At the same level, Sculpt Spells lets them choose creatures equal to 1 plus the spell's level to automatically succeed on their saving throws against evocation spells and take no damage on a successful save. The Evoker can reshape a fireball's blast zone around their allies before it even lands. That's the school's identity in 2 early features: more access to its spells, and the ability to use those spells without paying the usual collateral. Potent Cantrip at 6th level makes damaging cantrips deal half damage even to creatures that succeed on their saving throws. This doesn't seem dramatic until you consider that it applies every single round, for free, with no spell slot cost. A cantrip that reliably chips through resistance is a different threat than one the target shrugs off. Empowered Evocation at 10th level lets the Evoker add their intelligence modifier, with a minimum of +1, to 1 damage roll of any wizard evocation spell they cast. A 20 intelligence wizard adds +5 to every fireball, every lightning bolt, every cone of cold. That single modifier scales the entire school's output across every spell in the book. Overchannel at 14th level lets them deal maximum damage with a spell of 1st through 5th level, with escalating necrotic damage that ignores resistance and immunity on repeated uses before a long rest. Cast once and there's no cost. Cast a second time the same rest, and take 2d12 necrotic damage for each level of the spell. Each further use adds 1 more d12 per spell level. The design is trying to make a point. Evocation isn't infinite. The symbol has always been the same. The name has shifted slightly. The function never wavered. An evoker who has taken every feature on the list walks onto a battlefield and reshapes it. They throw fireballs that don't hurt their friends. They fire cantrips that ignore saves. They push damage rolls past the normal ceiling. Every feature on their sheet points the same direction. More damage, more reliably, with less collateral. The school was built for a specific role, and the wizard who picks it is making a choice about what kind of problem they want to be on the field.